Hey guys, tonight we are sharpening the world. The sword defends the kingdom, but the knife feeds it. We are joining the medieval cutler. We are going to mix soft iron and hard steel to create the perfect edge. This is a story about friction, sparks, and the art of division. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, hear the stone against the steel, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The workshop stands narrow and deep. Timber beams overhead, blackened with centuries of smoke. The floor is packed earth, dark and oily from years of coal dust and quenched metal. Light enters through small windows, pale and hesitant, doing little to illuminate the interior. But that's fine. The cutler doesn't need much light. Not yet. Later, when the grinding begins, when precision matters most, he'll move closer to the window. For now, the forge provides its own illumination. A deep orange glow that pulses with each breath of the bellows. The air here is different. You notice it immediately. It's not the heavy, brutal heat of the blacksmith's forge down the street. This is refined, controlled. The cutler's fire burns smaller, hotter, more focused. The smell is sharp. Hot iron, charcoal, stone dust. And underneath it all, something metallic and clean, like the scent of a knife fresh from the whetstone. It catches in the back of your throat. Not unpleasant, just present. A reminder that you're in a place where metal is transformed. The cutler stands at his bench. He's not a large man. He doesn't need to be. This isn't work that requires bulk. It requires patience, steadiness, an understanding of metal that goes beyond brute force. His hands are scarred, yes, burned in places, nicked by blades that were almost sharp. But they're not the massive, calloused hammers of the blacksmith. They're precise, controlled. These are the hands of a surgeon, not a warrior. On the bench before him lie 3 bars of metal. This is where the magic begins. This is where we learn the fundamental truth of blade making. A single piece of steel, no matter how good, is never enough. Too hard and it shatters. Too soft and it bends. The cutler knows this. His father knew it. His grandfather knew it. The knowledge stretches back through generations, passed down in workshops just like this one, in towns and cities across medieval Europe. The first bar is wrought iron, soft, malleable, tough. If you tried to make a blade from this alone, you could sharpen it, but the edge would fold over with the first cut. It would bend rather than cleave. But it has virtues. It absorbs shock. It flexes without breaking. It's forgiving. The spine of a good knife, the core of its strength, comes from this metal. The second bar, identical to the first, more wrought iron, because 1 bar isn't enough. We need symmetry, balance. The steel will sit between them, cradled and protected. The third bar is different. This is blister steel. The cutler picks it up, feels its weight. It's denser than the iron, harder. This steel began its life as wrought iron too, but it was transformed. It spent days buried in charcoal, locked in a stone box, heated to a temperature just below melting. The carbon from the charcoal migrated into the iron's surface, hardening it, changing its very nature. When it emerged, its surface was covered in small blisters, hence the name, blister steel. Not perfectly uniform, not refined like the steel that will come centuries later, but hard. Hard enough to take an edge that will slice through rope, through leather, through meat and bone. This is the sandwich. This is the secret. Hard steel for the edge. Soft iron for the spine. 3 bars will become one. But first, they must be prepared. The cutler takes the bars to the grindstone. Not the great yellow wheel that dominates one corner of the workshop. That comes later. This is a smaller stone, hand-cranked, used for rough preparation. He grinds the faces of each bar, removing scale, rust, any imperfection that might prevent a clean weld. The stone bites into the metal with a high, singing whine. Sparks scatter in brief orange constellations. Metal dust falls in a fine, dark powder. The faces must be clean, perfect. Metal touching metal with nothing in between. Any gap, any contamination, and the weld will fail. The layers will separate. The blade will be weak, worthless. When the bars are prepared, he sets them aside and turns to the fire. The forge is a shallow bowl of brick filled with coal. In its heart, a deep bed of glowing embers pulses with contained energy. The cutler works the bellows, a long wooden handle connected to leather lungs that force air through the fire. With each compression, the coals brighten, shifting from deep red to orange to yellow. The temperature climbs. He places the 3 bars into the fire, not thrown carelessly, positioned. The blister steel in the middle, an iron bar on each side. He wants them to heat evenly. If one heats faster than the others, the weld will be uneven, weak on one side. The bars nestle into the coals, disappearing into the glow. Now comes the waiting, not long, but not rushed. The cutler has learned patience. He learned it as an apprentice, spending years watching his master work before being allowed to touch the fire himself. Patience is what separates the cutler from the blacksmith. The blacksmith forces metal to his will. The cutler persuades it. While the metal heats, he prepares the flux. A small bowl sits on the bench, half filled with borax powder. He adds a few drops of water, mixing it into a paste with his finger. Borax, the miracle substance. When the metal reaches welding heat, when the surfaces begin to sweat and shimmer, he'll dust this flux across them. The borax will melt, flowing across the metal faces, dissolving any oxides, preventing new ones from forming. It creates a protective barrier, allowing the metal surfaces to fuse cleanly, completely. The bars are changing color. Red, orange, yellow. The cutler watches. He doesn't use a thermometer. Those don't exist yet. He uses his eyes, his experience. The color of the metal tells him everything he needs to know. Yellow means hot, but not hot enough. He needs white. He needs the metal to shimmer with internal light, to glow like a captive sun. The bellows wheeze and breathe. The coals surge brighter with each stroke. The workshop grows hotter. Sweat begins to trace lines through the coal dust on the cutler's face, but he doesn't move away. He watches the metal, waiting for the moment. There, the bars begin to glow white at their cores. The edges still show yellow, but the hearts of the bars are reaching welding temperature. The cutler moves quickly now. He pulls the bars from the fire with long tongs, placing them on the anvil. The wrought iron bars first, side by side. He grabs the borax, sprinkling the white powder across their top faces. It hits the white-hot metal and immediately liquefies, flowing and bubbling, forming a glassy coating. The blister steel comes next. He positions it carefully on top of one iron bar, then flips the second iron bar on top, creating the sandwich. 3 layers. Iron, steel, iron. The flux boils between them, hissing and spitting small droplets of molten borax onto the anvil. The hammer comes up, not a huge sledge. This is a hand hammer, maybe 3 pounds, heavy enough to forge, light enough for control. The cutler strikes the end of the sandwich, a ringing blow. The metal, white hot and plastic, deforms slightly. The layers begin to compress together. Thud. He strikes again, slightly overlapping the first blow. Thud. And again, working along the length of the sandwich, driving the layers together. Each blow sends a small shower of sparks radiating outward. Bits of flux splatter. Scale begins to form on the surface, dark and crusty. Thud, thud, thud. The rhythm is steady, hypnotic. This is not wild hammering. This is measured, each blow placed with intention. The cutler is listening to the metal, feeling it through the hammer. The resistance tells him how plastic the metal is, whether it's too hot, too cold, just right. The sandwich begins to weld. At the molecular level, something remarkable happens. The iron atoms at the surface of each bar diffuse into their neighbors. The boundaries between the layers begin to blur. Soft iron flows into hard steel. Hard steel embeds itself in soft iron. They become one piece, stronger than either alone. But the metal is cooling, the white heat fading back to yellow, then orange. If the temperature drops too far, the welding will stop. The layers will remain separate. The cutler moves back to the forge, placing the partially welded sandwich back into the heart of the fire. The bellows resume their breathing. The coals brighten. While the metal reheats, the cutler allows himself a moment. He wipes sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a dark smear. The workshop is a furnace now. The small windows do nothing against this heat. But this is the work. This is the craft. Men have done this for hundreds of years. They'll do it for hundreds more. The metal reaches white heat again. He pulls it out, returns to the anvil. The hammer rises and falls. Thud, thud, thud. Gradually, the three bars become one. The sandwich compresses, lengthens. What started as three separate pieces is now a single billet. The weld is complete, but this is just the beginning. This unified bar of laminated metal must now become a knife. The cutler examines the billet. About 10 inches long, an inch wide, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. Not much to look at. The surface is black with scale, rough and irregular. But inside, hidden beneath that ugly exterior, is the perfect combination of hard and soft, strength and flexibility, the potential for sharpness that will define this blade. He returns the billet to the fire, but his intention has changed. Before, he was welding. Now he's forging. He's going to draw this bar out, lengthen it, thin it, shape it into the profile of a knife. This will take time. This will take many heats, but time is something the cutler has. The metal glows white again. He pulls it from the fire and begins to hammer, working from the center outward. Each blow stretches the metal slightly, pushing it longer, thinner. The billet begins to take on a tapered shape, wider at one end, narrower at the other. The wide end will become the blade. The narrow end will become the tang, the part that extends into the handle. Thud, thud, thud. The hammer sings against the anvil. The rhythm never changes, steady, relentless. The cutler turns the billet with each blow, working it from all sides, ensuring even thickness. If he hammers more on one side than the other, the blade will warp, will twist. Evenness is everything. Back to the fire. The metal must be kept hot. Cold metal resists the hammer, cracks under stress. Hot metal flows. It wants to move. The cutler is simply guiding it, suggesting the shape it should take. Heat, hammer, heat, hammer. The cycle repeats, over and over. Gradually, the rough billet transforms. It's becoming recognizable now. Definitely a blade shape, about 12 inches long. The business end is wider, flatter. The tang extends from it, narrow and squared off. But the profile is still rough, irregular. The edges aren't true. This is where finer work begins. The cutler switches hammers, choosing a lighter one, maybe 1.5 pounds. This hammer has a slightly crowned face, rounded rather than flat. It leaves smoother marks, allows for more subtle shaping. He heats the blade again, but now he's watching the color more carefully. Not white heat. That's too hot for fine work. He wants orange. Orange heat is soft enough to move the metal, but cool enough for control. The hammer dances along the edge of the blade, defining it, straightening it. Each blow is lighter now. Tink, 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 a higher pitch than before. The edge begins to emerge from the rough profile. It's not sharp yet, not even close, but the intention is there. You can see where the edge will be. The cutler works both sides of the blade, keeping it symmetrical. He sights along its length, checking for warps, for twists. The slightest irregularity now will become a major flaw later. Better to correct it while the metal is hot, while it can still be persuaded. The tang receives attention too. It needs to be consistent in width, in thickness. This is what will anchor the blade in its handle. If the tang is weak, if it's irregular, the knife will be useless. The best blade in the world is worthless if it separates from its handle the first time you use it. Hours pass. The light from the windows changes angle, grows warmer, begins to fade. The cutler doesn't notice. He's in the rhythm now. Heat, hammer, examine, heat, Hammer, examine. The blade evolves with each cycle, refining, becoming. Finally, the rough forging is complete. The blade has its shape. About 10 inches of blade, 3 inches of tang. The profile is clean, the edges are straight, the thickness is even. But it's still covered in black scale, still rough, still far from finished. The cutler sets the blade aside to cool. Not quenched. Not yet. Quenching comes later, after the blade is ground, after its final shape is established. For now, it cools slowly in the air, the glow fading from white to yellow to red to black. The metal pings and ticks as it contracts, as internal stresses settle. While the blade cools, the cutler prepares the next station, the yellow wheel. This is what separates the cutler from the blacksmith more than anything else. The blacksmith rarely grinds his work, a bit of filing maybe to remove rough spots. But the cutler grinds everything. The wheel is his signature tool. The yellow wheel is a massive disc of sandstone, maybe 3 feet in diameter, 6 inches thick. It sits in a wooden frame, mounted on an axle, with a trough beneath it filled with water. The wheel is turned by a foot pedal. The cutler sits or kneels beside it, working the pedal with his foot, and as it spins, the bottom edge of the wheel passes through the water, keeping it wet, keeping it cool. The wheel itself is yellow, hence the name. Yellow sandstone, quarried from specific locations known for producing stone with the right texture, the right hardness. Too soft, and the wheel wears away too quickly, becomes uneven. Too hard, and it doesn't cut the steel efficiently. The yellow wheels, the good ones, have a grit that's just right. They cut steadily, evenly, leaving a surface that's smooth but not polished. But here's the thing about the yellow wheel. You don't sit beside it like a modern grinder. You don't hold the blade against it. No, you lie on it. You mount a board across the top of the wheel, called the horse, and you lie face down on this board, your chest and belly pressed against the wood, your face sometimes only inches from the spinning stone. And you hold the blade between both hands, pressing it against the upward moving side of the wheel, using your body weight to control the pressure. It sounds awkward. It is awkward, but it's also incredibly effective. You can feel everything, every vibration, every catch. You have total control over the angle, over the pressure. You become one with the grinding process. The cutler positions the horse across the wheel. It's worn smooth from years of use, contoured to the body. He tests the wheel, working the pedal. The stone begins to turn, slow at first, then faster. The bottom edge dips into the water with each revolution, emerging wet and dark. He picks up the cooled blade. It's black, covered in scale, ugly, but he knows what's underneath. He positions himself on the horse, lying face down, the blade gripped in both hands. His foot works the pedal. The wheel spins. He brings the blade to the stone. The first contact is harsh. The scale on the blade is thick, crusty. The stone bites into it grudgingly. A rough, grinding sound fills the workshop. Dark sludge begins to accumulate where blade meets stone, a mixture of scale, water, and stone particles. The cutler applies pressure, using his body weight, pushing the blade into the spinning stone. The scale begins to come off in patches, dark flakes mixed with the wet sludge. Underneath, glimpses of metal appear, gray, silver, the true color of steel. The wheel hisses as it spins through the water. The blade grinds against it with a sound like sustained thunder. The cutler works methodically, grinding one side of the blade from tang to tip, removing the scale, revealing the metal beneath. This is meditative work. The rhythm of the pedal, the spin of the wheel, the steady pressure of the blade against stone. The cutler's mind settles into a calm focus. This is where mistakes happen if you're not careful, if your attention wanders. If you press too hard in one spot, you'll create a hollow in the blade. Too light, and you'll never remove the scale. The pressure must be constant, even. The sludge builds up along the blade's edge. The cutler pauses periodically, dipping the blade in a bucket of water, washing away the accumulated grit, examining his progress. Slowly, the black scale disappears. The blade emerges from its rough shell. He flips the blade, works the other side. Same process, same steady grinding. The sound fills the workshop, drowns out everything else. Just the hiss of water, the grind of stone, the rhythmic creak of the pedal. The blade is transforming. Where before it was black and rough, now it's silver and smooth. The grinding reveals something else too. You can see the layers, faint lines running along the blade's length. The boundaries between the iron and steel aren't perfectly invisible. They're there, subtle but visible. Delicate striations that prove this blade is laminated, that it's made of multiple materials forged into one. This is a mark of quality. A solid blade made from a single piece of steel shows no such pattern. It's uniform, boring. But a laminated blade, a laminated blade tells a story. It shows craftsmanship. It shows that someone took the time to combine materials to create something better than the sum of its parts. The cutler continues grinding. He's working the bevels now, creating the angles that will eventually become the edge. The blade is thickest at the spine, maybe 1/8 of an inch. From there, it tapers smoothly toward the edge. This taper is crucial. Too steep, and the edge will be fragile. Too shallow, and the blade will be thick, will wedge into material rather than slicing through it. His hands guide the blade, adjusting the angle constantly. The wheel removes metal quickly, too quickly if you're not careful. He checks his progress frequently, running his thumb along the bevel, feeling for evenness. The light from the windows is nearly gone now. The workshop is dim except for the glow of the forge, banked but still alive. The cutler works by feel as much as sight. He knows this wheel. He knows its contours, its worn spots, its characteristics. He adjusts his position to compensate, moving the blade to different parts of the wheel's surface to ensure even grinding. The tang needs attention too. It's still square, still rough from the hammer. The cutler grinds its sides, smoothing them, creating a consistent shape. The tang doesn't need to be pretty, but it needs to be functional. It will be hidden inside the handle, but it must fit securely, must transfer force from the handle to the blade without weakness. Hours pass. The wheel turns. The blade grows smoother. The bevels become more refined. The cutler is working toward a specific geometry now. He wants the blade to be about 1/16 of an inch thick at its widest point, just behind the edge. From there, it will taper to almost nothing. Not sharp yet. That comes later. But thin, thin enough that sharpening will be quick, will require removing only a small amount of metal. The grinding creates heat. Even with water cooling the stone, the friction generates warmth. The blade grows warm in the cutler's hands. Not hot, not like the forge, but warm. A reminder of the energy being expended, the metal being removed particle by particle. The sound changes as the grinding progresses. At first, when removing the heavy scale, it was rough, grinding, harsh. Now, as the blade becomes smoother, the sound refines. It's higher pitched, more of a hiss than a grind. The stone is cutting less aggressively, polishing more than removing. The cutler sits up, giving his back a rest. He's been lying on the horse for what feels like hours, probably has been hours. He examines the blade in the dim light. It's silver now, smooth. The bevels are clean, even. The geometry is right. The blade is thin behind the edge, ready for sharpening. But not tonight. The rough grinding is done, but there's more work ahead. Finer grinding on different stones, heat treatment, tempering, sharpening, handle fitting. Each step crucial. Each step requiring its own tools, its own technique, its own patience. The cutler sets the blade on the bench. Tomorrow, or the day after, he'll return to it. He'll refine it further. But for now, this phase is complete. The blade has been forged from 3 bars into one. It's been shaped under the hammer. It's been ground on the yellow wheel until the rough scale is gone and the true metal is revealed. He looks at it lying there on the bench. Still not a knife, Not yet, but closer, much closer. The potential is visible now. The shape is defined. Someone else might look at it and see a blade. The cutler sees all the work still to come, but he also sees what it will become. He sees the finished knife, the handle fitted perfectly to the tang, the edge honed to hair-splitting sharpness, the whole thing balanced and beautiful. This is the knowledge that sustains him, this vision of completion, because the work is hard, the hours are long, the workshop is hot in summer, cold in winter. The smoke irritates the eyes and lungs, the metal burns and cuts. The grinding wheel throws grit that works its way into clothing, into skin, into every crack and crevice. But when a knife is finished, when it's complete, when he hands it to a customer and watches them test the edge, watches their eyes widen at its sharpness, at its balance, at its beauty, that makes it worthwhile. That justifies all the heat and smoke and pain and tedium. The cutler's trade is not glamorous. It's not celebrated in songs like the swordsmith's craft. No one writes ballads about the man who makes kitchen knives and eating utensils. But the cutler knows the truth. The sword defends the kingdom, yes, but the knife feeds it. The knife does the daily work. The knife is in every home, in every workshop, in every kitchen. The knife is civilization's most essential tool. And not just any knife, a good knife, a knife that holds an edge, a knife that doesn't bend or break, a knife made by a cutler who understands that you can't just take one piece of steel and hope for the best. You have to combine materials, hard and soft, strong and flexible. You have to forge them together into something new, something better. This is the secret, the sandwich, 3 bars becoming one. It seems simple when you say it like that, but the execution requires knowledge accumulated over generations. How hot to heat the metal, how much flux to use, how hard to hammer, how long to grind. Every step informed by experience, by trial and error, by lessons learned and passed down. The cutler runs his hand over the ground blade one more time. The metal is cool now, room temperature. The surface is smooth under his fingertips. He can feel the subtle transition from spine to bevel, from bevel to edge. It's good work. The grinding is even. The geometry is correct. Tomorrow, he'll take it to the fine stones. Not the yellow wheel, but smaller stones, handheld, used with oil instead of water. These stones will refine the surface further, removing the scratches left by the yellow wheel, creating a smoother finish. The blade will go from rough ground to fine ground, from silver gray to almost polished. But that's tomorrow. Tonight there are other tasks. The forge needs banking properly. The tools need cleaning. The floor needs sweeping. A cutler's workshop never stays clean, but it can be maintained. Tools put away, metal sorted, work organized. The cutler moves through these tasks methodically. He rakes the coals in the forge, covering them with a layer of fresh coal, then a layer of ash. This will keep them alive through the night, smouldering gently, ready to be revived in the morning. It's more efficient than starting from scratch each day. The hammers go on their rack. Each one has its place. The heavy forging hammers, the lighter planishing hammers, the specialized hammers for specific tasks. A cutler collects hammers over his career, some inherited from his master, some made himself, each one familiar, each one suited to particular work. The anvil gets a wipe down, removing the scale and flux residue. A good anvil is expensive. This one belonged to the cutler's master and his master's master before that. The face is still relatively flat, still true despite decades of hammering. It will last decades more if cared for properly. The tongs go on their hooks. Long tongs for gripping bars fresh from the forge, short tongs for smaller work, specialized tongs with jaws shaped for specific tasks. A cutler never has enough tongs. There's always one more size, one more shape that would be useful. The grinding wheel gets cleaned too. The cutler scrapes away the accumulated sludge, washes the trough, refills it with fresh water. The wheel itself is inspected. Are there any cracks forming? Any uneven wear? The stone is a consumable, will eventually wear down and need replacing, but a well-maintained wheel lasts years. As he works, cleaning and organizing, the cutler's mind is already moving ahead. This blade is one of several in progress. There's another blade, already ground, waiting for heat treatment. There's a set of eating knives, small, delicate things that need their handles fitted. There's a cleaver for the butcher, nearly finished, just needs final sharpening. There's a commission for a gentleman's knife, folding style, that will require careful fitting of the pivot mechanism. The work never ends. As soon as one blade is finished, another begins. The cutler doesn't mind. This is his life. This is what he knows. He apprenticed for 7 years, learning every aspect of the craft. He worked as a journeyman for 5 more, traveling from workshop to workshop, learning different techniques, different styles. Now he has his own shop, his own customers, his own reputation to maintain. Reputation is everything in this trade. A bad blade, a failed weld, an edge that doesn't hold, these things get remembered, get talked about. The cutler guards his reputation jealously. Every blade that leaves this workshop must be perfect, or as close to perfect as human skill can achieve, because his name is on that blade, even if not literally engraved there. Everyone in town knows which cutler made which knife. The style gives it away, the particular curve of the blade, the way the handle is fitted. The small details that distinguish one craftsman's work from another's. The workshop is clean now, as clean as it gets. The floor is swept. The tools are organized. The forge is banked. The blade rests on the bench, waiting for tomorrow's work. The cutler allows himself a moment of satisfaction. Today was productive. The 3-bar sandwich was successfully forged and welded. The blade was drawn out to proper length and thickness. The rough grinding is complete. Good progress. Solid work. He extinguishes the few remaining candles. The workshop dims to near darkness, lit only by the faint glow from the banked forge. Outside, the street is quiet. The other craftsmen have finished their days too. The blacksmith, the carpenter, the cobbler, each in their own workshop, doing their own work, all contributing to the functioning of the town. The cutler locks the door behind him. Tomorrow he'll be back. Tomorrow the work continues. The blade will move closer to completion. Other blades will progress through their own stages. The cycle continues. Forge, hammer, grind, heat treat, sharpen, finish. Each blade its own small journey from raw materials to finished tool. But that's tomorrow. Tonight the workshop rests. The blade rests. The cutler rests. The yellow wheel sits silent in the darkness, its surface still damp from the day's grinding, waiting for the foot to work the pedal, for the stone to spin, for the metal to meet its surface once again with that distinctive hiss of water and stone and steel. The next morning arrives early. The cutler rises with the dawn, as he always does. The workshop calls. There's work waiting. The blade on the bench hasn't magically finished itself overnight. It still needs its finer grinding, still needs heat treatment, still needs so much more. He unlocks the door, enters the familiar space. The smell hits him immediately. Coal, metal, stone dust. It's in the walls, in the timbers, in everything. You can't escape it. The cutler doesn't try. It's the smell of his trade, the smell of productive work. The forge comes first. He uncovers the banked coals, revealing the dull red glow beneath. A few strokes of the bellows and they brighten. He adds fresh charcoal, building up the fire. It's not needed yet, but it will be. Better to have it ready. The blade still sits on the bench where he left it. He picks it up, examines it in the better light of morning. The yellow wheel grinding looks good, smooth, even. But there's still a pattern of fine scratches across the surface, the marks left by the sandstone. These need to be removed. The blade needs to be refined further. The cutler moves to his workbench, where several smaller stones are laid out. These are oil stones, fine-grained whetstones that are used with oil rather than water. The oil keeps the stone from clouding, keeps the metal particles suspended, allows for smooth cutting. He selects a medium stone first, not too coarse, not too fine. He drizzles a thin stream of oil across its surface, then picks up the blade. The technique is different from the yellow wheel. Here, he holds the blade in his hands and draws it across the stationary stone, maintaining a consistent angle. The yellow wheel removed metal quickly. These stones remove it slowly, carefully, refining the surface rather than aggressively shaping it. The blade moves across the stone in long, smooth strokes. The cutler keeps the angle consistent, using the same bevel established during the rough grinding. The stone makes a soft, whispering sound as steel slides across it, nothing like the aggressive hiss of the yellow wheel. This is quieter, gentler. The oil darkens as it picks up steel particles. The cutler wipes the blade periodically, examining the surface. The deep scratches from the yellow wheel are being replaced by finer scratches from the oil stone. Progress is slow but steady. He works one side of the blade completely, then flips it and works the other. Symmetry is crucial. Equal amounts of metal removed from each side. Equal refinement of each bevel. An unbalanced blade will cut poorly, will tend to deflect to one side or the other. After the medium stone, he moves to a finer one. The process repeats. Oil, long strokes, consistent angle. The scratches from the medium stone are replaced by even finer scratches. The surface is becoming smoother, more refined. This is patient work, meditative, the repetitive motion, the soft sound of steel on stone, the gradual improvement of the surface. There's no rushing this. Rush, and you'll create uneven bevels. Rush, and you'll round the edge. Rush, and you'll compromise all the work that came before. The cutler's mind drifts as he works. He thinks about the man who will eventually own this knife. A cook, probably, or maybe a huntsman. The blade's size and shape suggest a general-purpose knife. Something for cutting meat, vegetables, rope, a daily user, a working tool. That's most of the cutler's business. Working tools. Practical knives for practical people. Occasionally someone commissions something fancier. A gentleman's knife with an ivory handle, a decorated blade for ceremonial purposes. But mostly it's working knives. Kitchen knives. Belt knives. Trade knives for various crafts. These working knives are the cutler's pride, because they must perform. A decorative knife can be forgiven if its edge doesn't hold perfectly. It's rarely used anyway. But a working knife gets tested every day. Cut after cut after cut, it must hold its edge, must resist chipping, must be tough enough to handle abuse. That's why the 3-bar sandwich matters so much. That laminated construction, hard steel for the edge, soft iron for the spine. It creates a blade that has the best of both worlds, an edge that can be sharpened to razor keenness and will hold that edge through extended use, a spine that won't shatter if the knife is accidentally dropped or struck. A single piece of steel could never achieve both properties. Too hard and it shatters, too soft and the edge fails. The cutler's ancestors figured this out. They experimented. They tried different combinations. They learned through failure and success what works and what doesn't. That knowledge now flows through the cutler's hands, guides his decisions, informs his technique. The blade is looking better now. The surface is much smoother. The scratches are so fine they're barely visible. The cutler switches to his finest stone. This one will polish the metal, will bring out its true color and luster. More oil, more long, careful strokes. The blade whispers across the stone. The bevels are refined to near perfection now. The geometry is exact. The surface is smooth. Just a bit more work, and the grinding will be complete. The cutler works the finest stone until he's satisfied. The blade is no longer silver gray. It's brighter now, almost white. The polished steel reflects light cleanly. The faint layer lines are still visible, subtle striations running the length of the blade, beautiful in their way. a signature of quality construction. He wipes the blade clean, removing all traces of oil and metal dust. He examines it critically. The bevels are even. The surface is refined. The edge, while not yet sharp, is thin enough that final sharpening will be straightforward. The grinding phase is complete. But the blade still isn't hard. During the forging process, the steel was heated and hammered extensively. This can change its internal structure, can leave it softer than ideal. To bring out the steel's full potential, to make it truly capable of taking and holding a fine edge, the blade must be heat-treated. It must be hardened. This is perhaps the most critical step in the entire process. Everything done so far, the welding, the forging, the grinding, all of it can be undone by improper heat treatment. Get it wrong, and the blade will be too soft, won't hold an edge, or too hard, will be brittle, will chip or crack with use. Get it right, and the steel transforms, becomes something more than it was, becomes truly exceptional. The cutler approaches heat treatment with caution and respect. He's done this hundreds of times. Thousands, probably, if you count all the blades from his apprenticeship and journeyman years. But he never becomes complacent. Each blade is different. Each requires attention. Each demands precision. He returns to the forge, where the fire has been building. It's hot now, the coals glowing deep orange. He'll need it hotter still. For hardening, the steel must reach a specific temperature. Too low, and the hardening won't be complete. Too high, and the steel can burn, can become grainy and weak. The cutler places the blade into the fire, positioning it carefully. He wants even heating along its length. If one part heats faster than another, the resulting hardness will be uneven. The blade will be unpredictable. He works the bellows. The fire brightens. The blade begins to glow, first red, then orange. The cutler watches closely. He's looking for a specific color, cherry red. A deep, vibrant red that indicates the steel has reached the critical temperature for hardening. The blade reaches this color. The cutler doesn't rush. He lets it soak at this temperature for a few moments, ensuring the heat has penetrated throughout. Then, in one smooth motion, he pulls the blade from the fire and plunges it into a trough of oil. The oil explodes into activity, smoke, bubbles. The sudden quench shocks the steel, freezing its internal structure in a hard, highly stressed state. The blade hisses and steams in the oil. The cutler moves it gently, preventing vapor pockets from forming on the surface, ensuring even cooling. After several seconds, the violence subsides. The blade stops hissing. The oil calms. The cutler pulls the blade from the quench, wipes it clean. It's dark now, covered in a film of carbonized oil. Ugly. But underneath, the transformation has occurred. The steel is now hard, very hard, hard enough to scratch glass, hard enough to take an edge that will slice through rope with a single draw. But also brittle, too brittle. In this fully hardened state, the blade would chip easily, might even crack from thermal stress. It needs tempering. It needs to be reheated to a lower temperature, which will relieve some of the internal stress, will trade a bit of hardness for toughness. The cutler cleans the blade with abrasive sand, scrubbing away the dark film until the bare metal shows through. Bright, polished. He needs to see the surface clearly for the next step. He places the blade near the forge, but not in it, just close enough that the residual heat begins to warm the metal. As the temperature rises, the steel's surface begins to change color. This is oxidation, thin layers of oxide forming on the surface. The colors progress through a specific sequence as temperature increases. Pale yellow, straw yellow, bronze, purple, blue. Each color corresponds to a specific temperature. Each temperature results in different properties. Yellow gives maximum hardness but less toughness. Purple offers a good balance. Blue is softer but tougher. For a general-purpose knife, the cutler is aiming for purple, maybe a bit of blue. This will give an edge that's still very hard, still capable of exceptional sharpness, but tough enough to resist chipping during normal use. The colors begin to appear, starting at the tang where the blade is thinnest, where heat penetrates most quickly. Pale yellow, straw, bronze. The cutler watches intently. The colors are moving toward the edge. Purple appears, begins to spread. Now, the cutler plunges the blade back into the oil. The tempering colors stop spreading. The blade is locked in its new state, slightly softer than full hardness, but much tougher, much more usable. He pulls it from the oil again, wipes it clean. The heat treatment is complete. The blade has been transformed. It started as relatively soft, forged steel. It became extremely hard through hardening. Now, through tempering, it's reached its final state, hard enough for an excellent edge, tough enough for daily use. The perfect combination. The cutler tests the blade by trying to scratch it with a file. The file skates across the surface, barely marking it. Good. The hardness is right. He flexes the blade slightly. It springs back. Good. Still tough, not brittle. Now comes the final sharpening. All the work so far has been leading to this. The blade has been shaped, refined, heat-treated. Now it needs an edge, a real edge, the kind of edge that defines a knife's utility. The cutler returns to his oilstones. He starts with a medium stone, working the bevels at a slightly steeper angle than before. He's creating a micro bevel, a tiny secondary angle right at the edge. This reinforces the edge, makes it less prone to rolling or chipping. The hardened steel cuts differently on the stone. It's harder to abrade now. The stone must work harder to remove metal, but it does remove it, slowly, steadily. The cutler makes long, smooth strokes, maintaining consistent angle and pressure. A burr begins to form. This is expected. As the bevels meet at the edge, metal is pushed to one side, creating a tiny wire of steel extending from the edge. The cutler works one side until the burr forms along the entire length, then flips the blade and works the other side, pushing the burr back to the first side. He progresses to finer stones. The burr becomes smaller, more refined. The edge becomes smoother. The scratches become microscopically fine. With each stone, the edge improves, becomes keener, more refined. Finally, the finest stone. The cutler works each side delicately, light strokes, barely any pressure. The burr becomes so small it's almost invisible. He alternates sides, a few strokes on one, a few on the other, gradually reducing the burr until it simply disappears, worn away by the stone. The edge is finished. The cutler tests it. He holds up a sheet of thin cloth, lets it drape, brings the blade to it. The edge catches the cloth and slices through cleanly without snagging. Good. He tries a piece of rope. One draw, the rope parts. Excellent. The blade is sharp, truly sharp. Sharp enough to shave hair. Sharp enough to slice paper with ease. This is what separates a cutler's work from lesser efforts. Anyone can make a blade-shaped object, but creating an edge like this requires knowledge, skill, patience. The knife still needs a handle. The tang extends from the blade, waiting to be fitted with wood or bone or horn. But that's a different process, a different set of skills. Some cutlers do their own handle work. Others send the blades to specialized handle makers. This cutler does both, depending on the commission. But for now, for this moment, the blade itself is complete. From 3 bars of metal, through fire and hammer and stone and oil, a blade has emerged. It embodies centuries of accumulated knowledge. The understanding of metallurgy, even if the cutler can't explain it in scientific terms. The knowledge of heat and hammer and quench. The skill of grinding and sharpening. This blade will outlive its maker, will be used for years, possibly decades, will cut countless meals worth of food, will be resharpened many times, will perhaps be passed down to children or grandchildren. Long after the cutler is gone, this blade will remain, doing its quiet, essential work. The workshop has grown warm again. The forge is still burning. The day isn't over. There are other blades to work on, other stages of other processes. The cutler's work is never truly finished. One blade completes while another begins, the cycle continuous. He sets the finished blade aside carefully, picks up another piece in progress. This one is further back in the process, not yet ground, still rough from the forge. It needs time on the yellow wheel. The cutler positions the horse across the wheel, lies down, foot on the pedal. The wheel begins to turn. The blade meets the stone. The hiss and grind fill the workshop once more. The rhythm resumes. This is the life of the medieval cutler, not glamorous, not celebrated, but essential. Every household needs knives. Every craftsman needs cutting tools. The cutler provides them, makes them with skill and care, combines hard and soft, strength and flexibility into tools that serve civilization's daily needs. The wheel turns, the blade grinds, the water hisses. Outside, the town goes about its business. Inside the workshop, metal slowly transforms. Bar becomes blade. Rough becomes refined. Potential becomes reality. The cutler's hands are steady. His foot works the pedal rhythmically. His eyes watch the blade. His mind holds the knowledge of generations. The work continues, as it has for centuries, as it will for centuries more. The sword may defend the kingdom, but the knife feeds it. The knife clothes it. The knife builds it. The knife is civilization's most fundamental tool, and the cutler is its maker. The one who understands that true quality comes not from a single material, but from the perfect combination of different materials, hard and soft, strong and flexible, forged together into something greater than either alone. The yellow wheel spins. The blade grows smoother. The sludge accumulates. The cutler works on, patient and skilled, transforming metal into utility, continuing a craft as old as the Middle Ages themselves. The blade is complete, but a blade without a handle is only half a tool. Useful, perhaps, if you wrap the tang in cloth or leather for a makeshift grip, but not finished, not truly a knife. The tang extends from the blade like a skeletal finger, waiting to be clothed in something warm, something alive. The cutler moves to a different part of his workshop, a bench near the window where the light is better. Handle work requires precision, close work, the kind that strains the eyes if the light isn't right. He opens a wooden box, examines his collection of handle materials. Bone, antler, horn, wood, each has its virtues. Wood is light, comfortable, easy to work, but it can swell with moisture, can crack with age. Horn is beautiful, can be polished to a deep luster, but it's expensive, usually reserved for finer pieces. Antler is strong, has a natural texture that provides good grip. Bone is similar, but denser, more uniform. For this knife, the cutler selects bone. Cattle bone, specifically. The leg bones of cows, dense and hard, perfect for handles. He has a stack of them, acquired from the local butcher. Most people see bone as waste, as something to discard or boil for soup. The cutler sees handle material. He sees potential. The bones have been cleaned and dried. Some cutlers boil them to remove all traces of marrow and tissue. Others simply let them dry naturally, let time and insects do the work. This cutler prefers the latter method. It takes longer, but the bone remains harder, less likely to crack or warp. He selects a section of leg bone, about 8 inches long, 3 inches in diameter. This will yield several sets of handle scales. Scales, that's what they're called. 2 flat pieces that sandwich the tang, creating the handle. The term makes sense when you see them. Flat, paired, overlapping the tang like scales on a fish. The cutler secures the bone in a vise. A simple wooden vise, just 2 pieces of wood with a threaded screw running through them. He tightens it until the bone is held firmly. Then he picks up a saw, not a woodworking saw. This is a frame saw with a thin blade, designed for cutting bone and horn. He positions the saw at one end of the bone, begins to cut. The saw makes a rasping sound as it bites into the bone. White powder accumulates along the cut line. Bone dust. It has a distinctive smell. Dry, slightly acrid. The cutler breathes it in. He's breathed it in thousands of times before. The saw moves back and forth, back and forth. The cut deepens. This is slow work. Bone is hard, dense. The saw must work for every fraction of an inch, but the cutler is patient. Patience is the cutler's primary virtue. Rush this, and the saw will bind, will break. Or the cut will wander, will create an uneven slab useless for handle scales. The first cut is nearly through. The cutler can feel it in the resistance of the saw, just a bit more. The saw breaks through. A slab of bone separates from the main piece, maybe a quarter-inch thick. The cutler sets it aside and begins the next cut. Cut, rest, cut, rest. The rhythm is hypnotic. The saw sings its raspy song. Bone dust drifts down like snow. Another slab separates, then another. 4 slabs total. 2 for this knife. 2 for future use. The cutler releases the bone from the vise, sets the remaining piece back in the box. He picks up the 2 slabs he'll use for this handle. They're rough, uneven. One side is the outer surface of the bone, slightly curved, slightly porous. The other side is the inner surface, smoother but still irregular. These slabs need to be flattened, the inner surfaces especially. They'll be fitted against the tang, and they must mate perfectly. Any gap, any irregularity, and the handle will be weak, will shift and loosen with use. The cutler takes the first slab to a flat stone, not a sharpening stone. This is a coarser stone, used for flattening and shaping. He sprinkles water on its surface and begins to rub the bone slab against it in circular motions. The stone removes bone slowly, evenly. The inner surface of the slab gradually becomes flatter. The cutler checks his progress frequently, running his thumb across the surface, feeling for high spots. He continues grinding until the surface is perfectly flat. The second slab receives the same treatment. Grind, check, grind, check. The water on the stone turns milky with suspended bone particles. The cutler adds more water, washes away the slurry, continues grinding. Both slabs are flat now. He places them against the tang, one on each side. They sandwich it nicely. The tang is visible between them, but they cover it well, creating the proper handle thickness. Good. Now he needs to shape them. The slabs are rectangular, but a handle should be more refined. Slightly tapered from front to back, rounded on the edges, comfortable in the hand. The cutler marks the outline he wants using a piece of chalk. A gentle taper, a slight curve to the bottom edge, nothing dramatic. Working knives don't need fancy handles. They need functional handles, comfortable, secure. He takes the slabs to his grinding wheel. Not the yellow wheel. That's for metal. This is a smaller wheel, finer grit, used for bone and wood. He positions the first slab against the spinning stone, carefully grinding to the chalk line. Bone grinds differently than metal. It's less predictable, can chip if you press too hard, can burn if you grind too fast. The cutler works carefully with light pressure. The bone dust flies off the wheel in a fine white spray. The slab takes shape. The cutler grinds both slabs to matching profiles. When he holds them together, they're identical, mirror images. This is important. The handle must be symmetrical. An unbalanced handle makes a knife uncomfortable to use. The outer surfaces need shaping too. They're still rough, still showing the texture of the original bone. Some cutlers leave this texture, considering it part of the natural aesthetic. This cutler prefers a smoother finish, more refined, more professional. He takes the slabs back to the flat stone, grinds the outer surfaces until they're smooth. Not polished yet, that comes later, but smooth, free of irregularities. The slabs are shaped, flat on the inner surfaces, smooth on the outer, tapered and curved to create a comfortable grip. Now they need to be attached to the tang. This is where the rivets come in. Rivets, small metal pins that pass through holes drilled in both the tang and the handle scales. When hammered correctly, the rivets swell and lock everything together. It's a simple system, ancient, but effective. A properly riveted handle will last decades, centuries even. The cutler lays out the blade and the two handle scales on his bench. He positions the scales on either side of the tang, aligns them carefully. With a scribe, he marks where the rivet holes should go. 3 holes, one near the front of the handle where the blade meets the tang, one in the middle, one near the back. 3 rivets will hold this handle securely. Some cutlers use 2, some use 4. It depends on the knife size, its intended use. This knife, being a general-purpose working knife, gets 3. The marks are made. Now comes the drilling. The cutler selects a drill bit, not a modern twist drill. Those don't exist yet. This is a spoon bit, a simple shaft with a flat, spoon-shaped cutting edge at the tip, primitive by future standards, but effective in skilled hands. He secures the tang in the vise, one scale positioned against it. He positions the drill bit on the first mark. The drill is turned by a bow, a wooden frame with a cord wrapped around the drill shaft. Push the bow forward, the drill spins one direction. Pull it back, the drill spins the other way. The cutler begins working the bow. Push, pull, push, pull. The drill bit bites into the steel tang. Steel is hard. The drilling is slow. The bit heats up from friction. The cutler dips it in water periodically to cool it. The hole deepens. The drill cuts through the steel into the bone scale beneath. The cutler can feel when the bit breaks through the bone. The resistance suddenly decreases. He pulls the bit out, examines the hole. Clean, straight, perfect. 2 more holes to drill through the tang. The process repeats. Push, pull, push, pull. The bow drill's rhythm is soothing, meditative. The cutler's mind settles into the work. Nothing exists except the bow, the drill, the metal, the bone. All 3 holes are drilled through the tang and the first scale. The cutler removes this scale, positions the second one. He uses the holes already drilled in the tang as guides, inserting the drill bit through them to mark the bone. Then he drills through the second scale. Now all the holes are complete. 3 holes through the tang, 3 matching holes through each scale. Everything aligns perfectly. The cutler picks up his rivets. These are brass rivets. Brass is softer than steel, easier to work, but still strong enough for this purpose. Plus, brass doesn't rust. The golden color contrasts nicely with the bone and steel, a small decorative touch on an otherwise utilitarian knife. The rivets are simple pins, brass wire cut to length. Each one is slightly longer than the combined thickness of tang and scales. This extra length is essential. When the rivet is hammered, this excess material will mushroom out, forming heads on both sides that lock everything together. The cutler applies glue to the inner surfaces of the scales, not modern epoxy. This is hide glue, made from boiled animal hides and hooves. It's been used for centuries. Furniture makers use it. Luthiers use it. Cutlers use it. When properly prepared and applied, hide glue creates a bond that's incredibly strong. The glue is warm, kept liquid in a small pot near the forge. The cutler brushes it quickly onto both scale surfaces. It cools and thickens rapidly. He must work fast. He positions the first scale against the tang, aligns the holes, inserts the first rivet, then the second, the third. All 3 rivets pass through the tang and the first scale, protruding from the other side. The second scale goes on. The cutler aligns it carefully. The rivet ends poke through the holes in this scale. Everything fits. The scales are tight against the tang, the glue oozing slightly from the seams. Now the rivets must be peened. Peened. The term comes from the hammer's peen, the rounded or wedged end opposite the flat face. But in this context, it means spreading the rivet ends, forming heads that will lock the assembly together. The cutler places the handle assembly on a small anvil. A stake anvil, really. Just a steel post with a flat top, held in the bench. He positions it so one side of the handle is against the anvil face, the rivet ends on that side supported. He selects a small hammer, a rivet hammer, light, maybe half a pound. The head is flat and smooth, perfect for this delicate work. The hammer rises, falls, taps the end of the first rivet. A light tap, not a heavy blow. The rivet end begins to mushroom, begins to spread. Tap, tap, tap. The cutler works around the rivet end, tapping it from different angles. The brass spreads evenly, forming a small dome. A head. It's growing, expanding to cover more area than the rivet shaft. Tap, tap, tap. The sound is soft, musical, nothing like the heavy thud of forge work. This is precise, controlled, each tap carefully placed. The first rivet head is formed. The cutler flips the assembly over. Now the other side is up. The rivet end on this side receives the same treatment. Tap, tap, tap. The brass spreads, forms a matching head. The rivet is locked in place now. Tight, permanent. The cutler moves to the second rivet. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is hypnotic, each tap precisely weighted. The brass responds beautifully, spreads without cracking, forms perfect little domes on each side of the handle. The second rivet is complete, the third follows. Tap, tap, tap. The handle is assembled. The tang is sandwiched between two scales of bone. 3 brass rivets pass through everything, their peened heads locking it all together. The glue adds additional strength. This handle will never come apart. Not in this lifetime, not in several lifetimes. But it's rough. The scales aren't perfectly flush with the tang. There are slight misalignments. The rivet heads stand proud. The edges are sharp. The handle needs shaping, refining. The cutler takes the knife to a file. A large file, coarse cut, designed for rapid material removal. He works the file along the edges where the scales meet the tang. The file removes bone, blends the scales flush with the metal. The transition becomes smooth, seamless. He works all around the handle, the edges, the transitions. Anywhere there's a sharp corner or misalignment, the file hisses against the bone. White dust accumulates, falls to the floor. The handle gradually becomes more refined. The file work continues. The cutler switches to progressively finer files. Coarse, medium, fine. Each file removes the scratches left by the previous one. The handle becomes smoother, more comfortable. He pays special attention to the rivet heads. They need to be flush with the handle surface, or nearly so. A slight dome is acceptable, even attractive, but they can't stand proud, can't create pressure points against the hand. The file delicately shapes each rivet head, blends it into the surrounding bone. The brass is soft, files easily. The cutler is careful not to file too aggressively. He wants to shape, not remove. The handle is taking its final form. Smooth, comfortable. The scales are perfectly blended with the tang. The rivets are secure but unobtrusive. The shape fits the hand naturally. Now comes sanding. The file marks must be removed. The surface must be refined further. The cutler wraps coarse cloth around a block of wood, creating a sanding block. The cloth is impregnated with crushed abrasive. Garnet, maybe, or sand. Simple but effective. He rubs the handle with the sanding block. Long strokes, even pressure. The abrasive cloth removes the file marks, scratches the surface with finer scratches. Progress. Finer cloth, finer abrasive. The scratches become smaller, the surface becomes smoother, the bone begins to develop a subtle luster. The cutler works methodically, every surface, every curve, every transition. The sanding is thorough, patient, the kind of patient work that separates master craftsmen from hurried journeymen. The finest cloth comes last, so fine it's almost smooth. The scratches it leaves are microscopic. The bone is smooth now, polished almost. It has a warm, organic feel, comfortable, inviting. But it needs protection. Bone is porous. Without treatment, it will absorb moisture, oils from the hand, dirt. It will stain, become dark and grimy over time. A good handle needs sealing. The cutler has a small pot of beeswax, pure beeswax collected from local hives. It's been warmed until soft. He scoops a small amount with his finger and begins rubbing it into the bone handle. The wax penetrates the porous structure, seals it. The bone darkens slightly as the wax soaks in, becomes richer. The cutler applies wax to the entire handle, both scales. The rivets get wax too. It will protect them from tarnish. Once the handle is thoroughly waxed, he takes a piece of linen cloth. Old, soft linen, worn from years of use, perfect for buffing. He wraps the cloth around the handle and begins rubbing vigorously. The friction generates heat. The heat softens the wax. The rubbing action works the wax deeper into the bone while also removing excess from the surface. The linen glides back and forth. The handle begins to shine. Buff, buff, buff. The handle develops a deep, warm glow. The bone's natural color comes through, enhanced by the wax. Creamy white with subtle variations. The grain of the bone becomes visible, not prominent but present, a reminder that this was once part of a living creature. The brass rivets shine too. The buffing has polished them. They glow softly against the white bone, 3 golden darts securing the handle. The cutler continues buffing until his arm tires. The handle gleams now, smooth, protected, beautiful in its simplicity. This is a working knife, yes, but that doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. He sets the knife down, admires his work. The blade is sharp, properly heat-treated, ground to perfection. The handle is comfortable, secure, aesthetically pleasing. The knife is nearly complete. Nearly, but not quite. Because while the blade was sharpened earlier, that was just to test the edge, to ensure the heat treatment was successful. The edge is good, but it's not final, not perfect. A knife destined for a customer deserves the finest edge the cutler can create. He moves to his sharpening station, a dedicated area of the bench where several allstones are laid out. These are the cutler's finest stones, some inherited from his master, some acquired over years of searching for the perfect abrasive. The blade needs attention on progressively finer stones. He starts with a medium grit, not coarse. The blade is already close to sharp. This is refinement, perfection. The cutler drizzles oil onto the stone, a thin, light oil that will suspend the metal particles, keep the stone cutting cleanly. He picks up the knife, positions the blade against the stone. Angle is everything. Too steep, and the edge becomes thick, won't cut well. Too shallow, and the edge is fragile, will chip and roll. The cutler has developed an intuitive sense of angle over years of practice. He doesn't measure, doesn't use guides. His hands simply know. About 20 degrees. That's the angle. The blade touches the stone at 20 degrees from horizontal. The cutler draws the blade across the stone in a smooth, sweeping motion. The steel whispers against the stone. Swish. He lifts the blade, repositions, repeats the stroke. The motion is fluid, graceful, even. The blade sweeps across the stone like a dancer's gesture. Swish. 5 strokes on one side, then flip the blade. 5 strokes on the other side. The cutler maintains the same angle, the same pressure, the same rhythm. A swish, swish, swish. A burr begins to form. You can't see it yet, but you can feel it. The cutler runs his thumb very gently perpendicular to the edge. There, a tiny wire of metal, pushed up by the sharpening process. This burr indicates the bevels have met, that the edge is being refined. He continues, more strokes on the medium stone. The burr grows more pronounced. When he runs his thumb from the spine toward the edge, the burr catches slightly. Good. Finer stone now. The cutler selects his second finest stone, adds oil. The process continues. The same angle, the same sweeping strokes. But now the stone is cutting more gently, refining rather than aggressively shaping. A swish, swish, swish. The burr becomes smaller, more refined. The edge is getting sharper. The scratches from the previous stone are being replaced by finer scratches. Progress is incremental but steady. The light from the window is changing. The sun has moved across the sky. How long has the cutler been working? Hours, certainly. The knife has consumed the better part of a day, but this is normal, expected. A good knife cannot be rushed. The finest stone comes out. This is the cutler's pride. A stone acquired from a traveling merchant years ago. It came from distant quarries, places the cutler has never seen and never will. But the stone is exceptional, dense, fine-grained, perfect for creating the ultimate edge. Oil flows onto the stone's surface. The cutler positions the blade. The same angle, always the same angle. Swish. The sound is different on this stone, quieter, smoother. The blade glides across the surface with barely any resistance. The stone cuts so gently that it seems not to cut at all, but it does, microscopically, molecule by molecule. A swish, swish, swish. The cutler works each side of the blade. The burr is becoming very small now, almost imperceptible. He alternates sides. 3 strokes on one side, 3 on the other. The burr shifts back and forth, becoming smaller with each shift. 2 strokes each side, 1 stroke each side. The burr is almost gone. The cutler can barely feel it. Final strokes, just 1 per side. He brings the blade to the stone with the lightest possible pressure, barely touching. The blade whispers across the stone. The burr is gone, the edge is refined, but there's one more step, stropping. The cutler has a piece of leather, old leather from a worn boot. One side has been treated with a very fine abrasive compound, chromium oxide in this case, a pale green paste that polishes metal to a mirror finish. He secures the leather to the bench, treated side up. The knife blade comes to it, but the angle is different now. The blade is almost flat against the leather. The cutler pulls the blade toward himself, spine first. The edge trails behind, barely touching the leather. This is the opposite of normal sharpening. The blade moves backward. The edge never leads. This prevents cutting into the leather while still refining the edge. The blade glides across the leather. The chromium oxide polishes the edge, removes any last microserrations, any remaining burr. The edge becomes smooth, refined beyond what the stones alone could achieve. 10 strokes on one side, flip, 10 strokes on the other. The leather has a soft resistance. The blade whispers against it. The cutler tests the edge. He holds up a hair plucked from his own arm, brings the blade to it. The hair splits, cleanly, easily, without resistance. He tries paper, thin paper. The blade slices through it like it isn't there. No tearing, no resistance, just smooth division. The edge is perfect, as sharp as the cutler can make it, as sharp as this steel can become. This is the culmination of all the work. The welding, the forging, the grinding, the heat treatment, the handle fitting, all of it leading to this moment, this edge. The knife is complete, the blade is sharp, the handle is secure and comfortable, the rivets gleam. The bone glows with its waxed finish. This is a knife worthy of the cutler's reputation. He crafts a simple sheath, leather folded and stitched, lined with wood to protect the edge. The knife slides into the sheath with a satisfying whisper. The fit is snug, secure. The knife won't fall out accidentally, but it draws smoothly when needed. The cutler holds the finished knife, feels its weight, its balance. The handle fits his hand naturally. The knife wants to be used. That's the feeling a good knife gives. Not just that it can be used, but that it wants to be, that it's eager to fulfill its purpose. This knife will go to a customer, someone who ordered it weeks ago, someone who's been waiting patiently while the cutler worked. They'll pay a fair price, not cheap. A quality knife never is, but fair, worth the cost. And the knife will serve. For years, for decades, it will cut food, prepare meals, perhaps help in a trade. Leather workers use knives, so do carpenters. Scribes need knives to sharpen their quills. A good knife finds endless uses. The knife will be sharpened periodically. The edge will dull with use. That's inevitable. But the owner will take it to a stone, will restore the edge, or bring it back to the cutler for professional sharpening. The knife will endure. Eventually, perhaps, it will be passed down, given to a son or daughter, a useful tool, a family tool, the kind of thing that becomes part of a household's daily life. Not precious in the sense of being too valuable to use, precious in the sense of being reliably useful, dependably sharp, always there when needed. The cutler wraps the sheathed knife in cloth, sets it aside for the customer. Tomorrow or the next day they'll come to collect it. They'll draw the blade, test the edge, smile at its sharpness. They'll pay. They'll thank the cutler. They'll take the knife home. And the cutler will begin another. The cycle continues. Always another knife to make, another blade to forge, another edge to sharpen. The workshop is cooling now. The forge has burned down to embers. The cutler banks it for the night, covers the coals. Tomorrow he'll uncover them, build the fire again, heat metal again. But tonight the work is done. He sweeps the floor, bone dust, metal filings, coal dust, all mixed together on the packed earth. He sweeps it into a corner. Some cutlers save these sweepings, separate out the metal filings, sell them to foundries. Every bit of metal has value. The tools are cleaned and put away. The hammers on their hooks, the files in their rack. The stones wiped clean of oil, covered to protect them from dust. The workshop returns to order. The light from the windows is fading. Dusk is approaching. The cutler's day began at dawn. 14 hours, maybe 15. Long day, but productive. A blade completed. A knife ready for its new owner. His hands are tired, stained with oil and wax and metal dust. He washes them in a bucket of water, scrubs them with sand. They'll never be completely clean. The cutler's hands are always marked by his trade. Scars from cuts, burns from hot metal, calluses from tools. These are the hands that create sharpness, that transform raw materials into useful tools. The cutler steps outside. The street is quiet. Other workshops closing for the night. Other craftsmen finishing their days. The town settling into evening. He locks the workshop door behind him. Inside, the completed knife rests on the bench. Wrapped, waiting, sharp and ready. A tool for life. The sparks are gone. The hammer is silent. The wheel is still. The forge is dark except for the faint glow of banked embers. The workshop holds the day's work in stillness. Tomorrow will bring more metal, more heat, more grinding, more sharpening. The cutler's work is never truly finished. One knife completes while another begins. The cycle endless as long as people need tools, as long as civilization requires sharp edges. But tonight the workshop sleeps. The knife sleeps in its sheath. The blade that began as 3 separate bars of metal now rests as one complete tool, hard and soft, strong and flexible, sharp and durable. The sandwich of steel and iron, forged by fire, shaped by stone, finished by skill. The medieval world moves on outside. Kingdoms rise and fall, wars begin and end, seasons turn, generations pass, but the knife endures. The simple, essential tool, the cutter of food, the preparer of materials, the enabler of craft and trade and life. The cutler has created one more, added one more knife to the uncounted thousands that serve humanity's daily needs, not celebrated, not famous, but essential, quietly, reliably essential. The workshop is cool now. The heat of the day's work has dissipated. The metal rests at room temperature. The blade no longer glows, no longer throws sparks. It sits in peaceful darkness, sharp and ready, waiting for the moment when it will be drawn, when it will fulfill its purpose. And you are there with it, in the cool workshop, in the quiet darkness. The smell of coal and metal and stone has faded to a gentle memory. The sounds of hammer and grindstone have stilled. Everything is at rest. The knife is sheathed. You are safe. The sharp edge is covered, protected, harmless. The tool that can divide can also rest. The blade that can cut can also sleep. Your breathing slows, matches the quiet rhythm of the sleeping workshop. In, out, slow and steady like the bellows, but gentler, softer, the breath of rest, not work. The tang is secure in its handle. The rivets hold firm. The bone scales press tight, everything locked in place. Stable, secure, nothing will come loose, nothing will shift, all is fastened, all is safe. The edge has been honed to perfection. There is nothing more to do, no more grinding, no more hammering, no more heating. The work is complete. The knife is finished. Rest is deserved. Rest is earned. Outside, the medieval town settles into night. Candles are extinguished, fires are banked, doors are closed. The world enters its nightly pause. The workshop participates in this stillness. The tools rest. The forge sleeps. The wheel is motionless. The knife in its sheath represents completion, the end of transformation, bar to blade, rough to refined, potential to actuality. The journey is over, the destination reached. And you have witnessed this journey, from the first heat of the forge to the final stroke of the strop, from three separate pieces to one unified whole, from formless metal to purposeful tool. You have been there through every step, every hammer blow, every pass of the stone, every careful adjustment. Now the journey is complete, the workshop is dark, the knife is sheathed, the edge is protected, all is quiet, all is still, all is safe. The cutler has gone home, the workshop stands empty, but not cold, not unfriendly. It's a place of creation, of skill, of patient, careful work. And in the morning it will wake again. The forge will be rekindled, the wheel will turn, the work will continue. But tonight there is only rest, only darkness, only the quiet breathing of a sleeping workshop. The knife rests in its sheath. The blade dreams of the work it will do, the meals it will prepare, the materials it will shape, but those dreams are quiet, gentle, far away. Your breathing deepens, slows further, the rhythm of true rest. The workshop breathes with you, in the darkness, in the stillness, in the safety. The hard steel edge is covered, cannot cut, cannot harm. The sheath protects you from the blade. The blade protects you from nothing because there is nothing to fear, only rest, only sleep, only the gentle darkness of a workshop at peace. The fire is out, the sparks are gone, the noise has faded, the heat has cooled. Everything returns to quiet, to stillness, to rest. The knife is sheathed, you are safe. The workshop is cool, the night is gentle. Sleep now, rest. The work is done, the blade is complete, the edge is sharp, and you are safe. Safe in the cool, dark workshop. Safe with the sleeping tools. Safe with the sheathed knife. Everything is still. Everything is quiet. Everything is as it should be. The cutler's work is finished for the day, and so is yours. Sleep, rest. Let the darkness hold you like the sheath holds the blade, secure, protected, at peace. The knife sleeps, the workshop sleeps, and you sleep with them in the cool darkness, in the gentle stillness, in the perfect, complete safety of rest. Sleep.